sheaves into the floor. In other words, they're going to drop, going to gather them. Get the picture. He said, I will make you a horn of iron. I will make your hooves brass. You shall beat in pieces many people. I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. He's talking about Israel rising up and being a horn of iron and beating all their enemies and everything. And you're being attacked saying, what are you drinking, Micah? What are you doing? What are you smoking, man? Hauled off to put them in their timeline. Match their time. They match another time. And the matching of the time is our time. That's where it's at. And this guy, time when Israel sheaves on the floor and become a horn of iron that can beat anybody up in the neighborhood. And all, well, eventually, when King David is raised up. But the reality of it is, it gets better. I don't have the time. I want to cut this short, but I do want to go to this. Chapter 5, real quickly here. He says, in this particular case, he says, talks about Christ. Let me just paraphrase. Talks about Christ in chapter 5 in the beginning portions of verses 1 through about 6. But then in verse 7, he makes a slight shift and goes back to this remnant of Jacob that he referenced in verse 13 of chapter 4. And he says, the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as dew from not for man, nor wait for the sons of men. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles, in the midst of many people, as a lion. Jacob, in the latter day, will be among the Gentiles, as a lion. Among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep. In other words, he will be like a king of the jungle, but he also can be gentle, sensitive, like a playful lion with sheep. He can be both ways. He can be fierce, or he can be gentle and charitable and play with the lambs of the jungle. That's the characterization of this remnant of Jacob. But Micah's in a time when he's being attacked and torn down. He's in fear of his life. I don't even know where he wrote this. Maybe he wrote this in some cave somewhere. We don't even know. But the reality of it is, this was not the time to be talking about a remnant of Jacob, because the way it looked, there wasn't anybody going to be left. This is the framing. So what's he talking about? He's talking among the Gentile nations at some point of sheep who treads down and tears in pieces, and none can deliver. In other words, he can have his way with anybody of the jungle. Lifted up upon your adversaries. All your enemies shall be cut off, as we did World War I, as we did World War II and 2 theater fronts. The remnant of Jacob was the king of the mountain in that regard. Appeared to be a rather so just because or we recover and so forth doesn't necessarily is looking for much more. Read the rest of the chapter here, brethren. You will see that what ends up happening is that goes back into captivity. Verses 10 through 15. These are just little tidbits, high points, that have to mean something. And even if you don't agree with what I'm talking about or the way I'm characterizing it, and if indeed this is rather new to digest because I really haven't had the chance this stuff. Because when you look at it and are realistic about it, you have to admit some of this is what I'm submitting to all of us. They apply in the apostolic for a far greater fulfillment that will bring to fruition the ultimate captivity and back to the reinstatement of Israel that will be indeed of the millennium. Tremendous job calling in that regard of what we are looking to the future to help our Lord recover. And I could go to scriptures and talk about building the waste cities. Remember those scriptures? That you are going to become, you can read in other parts, we will become the saviors of the world, not like Christ. No. Saviors in the sense that we will be the counselors, the helpers, the assistants, and those that will help recover humanity back to a semblance of order and respect under the rule of the Torah, under the rule of the writings and the holy prophets, and of course the commandments of the apostles. That's why it's important we take time to read this stuff and get familiar with it, because this is going to be the law book of the world. This will be the law book of the world. And it gives us the direction, the guidance, and of course all of that information that we need to bring peace to man and goodwill to all of humanity. And that's your calling. It's a great calling and a tremendous opportunity for all of us to continue to be motivated to keep on keeping on. So with that, I'm gonna stop here. Any comments, questions? Yeah, Beth.
I have a couple.
Okay. Let me, Larry, if we can go ahead and wire this up. Testing. There we go.
Actually, I have 3 different questions I wanted to ask. Years ago, and this is just a very small point, but I remember hearing in the United States and Britain some prophecy that they had shown that the current Queen of England that's on the throne, Elizabeth, is descended from David. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
That is the case.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That they had actually.
Church, by the way, outside of the church. Yeah.
Okay. My next question is, in a nation like the United States, physically, we come from every place. Mm-hmm. The Native Americans, Indians, whatever. There's such a melting pot of so many different peoples. Mm-hmm. How can it be one tribe of peoples?
Mm-hmm. And it isn't. It isn't.
If you talk about, so is Manasseh like just a catch-all? I mean, I'm a little confused about that. The
catch-all, and that might not be a bad way to characterize it. The catch-all is this land. And obviously it was settled by a certain ethnicity of people that were used to open up the territories and establish this nation and to develop the rule of law that we call the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all of those things that go along with what we understand to be the nation's formation of stability and so on. The fact of it is that, yeah, some of us, ethnically speaking, we might have some Israelite stock in us, but quite frankly, that's not as important as it is being here and being beneficiaries of it, because frankly, if we're black...
The trumpets when they sound?
I think so. But that'll get you a cup of coffee and a donut. But I do kind of think...
Wouldn't John 3:16 covers it all and includes it all? For God so loved the world that he gave his only.
Right. That's right. That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I need to know in verse 4.
Lump to make one vessel unto let God be lesser than I saw. Hey, I'm not going to question why he did it. That's his choice. Why did he put such affluence in the United States of America and North America, the continent of North America, versus what's going on in India, or versus what's going on in Indonesia, or South America, or Africa? Hey, I don't know. All I know is 80% of the world's wealth, in many cases, is being enjoyed by just 7% of the world's population. But we can't deny the fact these prophecies add light to why that's happened. That is a tremendous realization for all of us to have, to understand and see behind the curtain how and why all these things came to be. And when you see that, it's not about British Israelism and how he makes his beings, seeing those choices validate his word to afford us proof that God is indeed working a real work in this world. So British Israelism is a term that we need to eschew and not even talk about, because it is a wrong characterization to associate with what we're understanding to God.
Yes, it tells you in the book of Acts, some of they sent the Galileans to the Parthians and the Medes, the Amalekites, the dwellers in Mesopotamia, in Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, parts of Libya, Cyrene, and strangers from Rome, and Jews and proselytes. So they knew where they were. And there's a place, and I don't remember exactly where it is, where somebody asked Peter about where they were being sent. And he said, we're being sent to the lost children of Israel, and they're the other side of the Euphrates, are they not? And they've been there for a long time. And that was the tribes that had been in the north country, that had been Israel, taking it over. And they knew where they were.
Touches on this as to where these people were. They knew where they were at. When he says that if they were mindful of that they're looking for a country, but if they were mindful of where they came from, they would have had opportunity. They could have had opportunity to come back, but they didn't care.
Right. They continued their wayward way.
Came there every year for the temple holy day at Pentecost.
And there's even a line of thinking as well, is that the wise men coming from the east, which was the Parthian Empire, were actual prophetic writings, and expected fully that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem, and they followed the star and so forth, and that these guys are not necessarily just three, but it could have been a whole entourage of them, that they came from that Parthian Empire, which was a concentration of former Israelites. Any other comments? Good conversation. That's good. That's good.
Just as far as God's sovereignty, I like what Mr. Ed, so like what Saul says. He says, and that's why he's God and I'm not.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully it's been helpful to all of you. Thanks a lot. Drive careful going